Just 1 minute ago, everything changed. In a move that has stunned royal watchers across the globe, Prince William is said to have taken decisive control behind palace doors, making a call that could redefine the future of the monarchy. And at the centre of it all is his own brother. Prince Harry, once a central figure in the royal inner circle, has reportedly been barred from returning to Balmoral ahead of what insiders are calling one of the most historically significant royal gatherings in years. But why now? Why would William make such a bold, controversial decision at a time when the royal family is already navigating pressure, scrutiny, and change? Because according to sources close to the situation, this isn't just about protocol, and it's not just about family tension. It's about control, it's about trust, and most importantly, it's about protecting the future of the crown. But what happened behind the scenes is far more complex than anyone expected. Because while the headlines focus on Harry being banned, the real story begins with a chain of events that quietly escalated over time until something finally snapped. And when it did, there was no going back. To understand how things reached this point, we have to go back to Balmoral itself. The Scottish estate has long held deep emotional and historical significance for the royal family. It's where traditions are upheld, decisions are quietly shaped, and relationships both strong and strained are tested away from public view. For decades, Balmoral represented unity, but now it's becoming a symbol of division. According to insiders, preparations had been underway for a major royal gathering, one tied to a historic moment for the monarchy. Senior members were expected to attend. The atmosphere, while formal, was meant to project stability and continuity, and that's where things became complicated. Because the question of whether Harry would be invited wasn't just logistical, it was deeply personal. At first, there were reportedly internal discussions about extending an olive branch. Some believed that including Harry could signal reconciliation. Others warned it might create more tension than resolution, and this is where the cracks began to show. Behind closed doors, concerns were raised, not just about past interviews or public statements, but about trust, specifically whether private conversations could remain private, because as many remember, previous royal interactions had later surfaced in ways that shocked even those closest to the situation, and that changed everything. According to sources, Prince William began taking a more active role in shaping the guest list and overall tone of the gathering. This wasn't just about planning, it was about control over the narrative and the environment. But what happened next shocked everyone. Rather than leaving the decision to broader consultation, William reportedly made a firm call: Harry would not be invited. The reasoning, according to insiders, wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. There were concerns about distraction, concerns about media leaks, and most importantly, concerns about overshadowing the purpose of the event itself. Because this wasn't just any gathering, it carried symbolic weight for the monarchy's future, and that's when things took a dramatic turn. Word of the decision didn't stay contained for long. Quiet discussions quickly turned into whispers, and whispers turned into headlines. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from family gathering to royal exclusion, and naturally attention turned to Harry. Would he respond? Would there be a statement? Or would silence speak louder than words? However, behind the scenes, something else was unfolding. Because while the public focused on the decision itself, insiders suggest that the real tension wasn't about Balmoral alone. It was about what Balmoral represented: control over legacy, control over image, and control over who gets to be part of the monarchy's next chapter. And this is where the story deepens. Because for William, this wasn't just about his role as a brother, it was about his role as a future king. And that responsibility comes with difficult choices. As the story began to spread, new details started to emerge, each one adding another layer to an already complex situation. And this is where the real story begins. According to royal insiders, tensions between Prince William and Prince Harry had not only persisted but intensified in recent months. While public appearances suggested distance, behind the scenes, communication was reportedly minimal and increasingly strained. But what happened next shocked everyone. Sources claim that prior attempts at reconciliation had quietly taken place, efforts that were never made public. Conversations were initiated, messages were exchanged. There were even discussions about rebuilding trust. But each time something went wrong. Either the timing wasn't right, or the outcomes didn't align, and over time optimism began to fade. That's when concerns shifted from how do we fix this to how do we manage this, because from an institutional perspective, the monarchy cannot afford unpredictability, and according to insiders, unpredictability became a key concern. There were fears that Harry's presence at Balmoral, especially during such a significant moment, could lead to unintended consequences, not necessarily through actions, but through perception. Because in today's media landscape, even the smallest interaction can become a headline, and that's when things took another dramatic turn. Reports began surfacing that the decision to exclude Harry wasn't made in isolation. It was supported quietly by others within the royal structure who shared similar concerns. Not everyone agreed, of course. Some believed the move would deepen the divide. Others argued that exclusion only fuels speculation. But ultimately, the decision stood, and that decision sent a message, a clear one, that the monarchy, under William's influence, is prioritizing stability over sentiment. However, behind the scenes, something even more significant was unfolding. Because the fallout wasn't limited to family dynamics, it extended into public perception. Royal commentators began weighing in. Some praised the move as a necessary step toward protecting the institution. Others criticized it as a missed opportunity for reconciliation. And then came the bigger question. What does this mean for Harry's future relationship with the royal family? Because this isn't just about one event. It's about access. It's about inclusion. And it's about whether the door is slowly closing or already shut. But what happened next raised even more eyebrows. According to insiders, the tone within royal circles has shifted noticeably. Conversations that once focused on when Harry returns have now evolved into if he returns. And that change is significant because it suggests a long-term shift, not just a temporary setback. And this is where the tension reaches its peak. Because while William's decision may have been strategic, it also carries emotional weight. This is not just a future king making a call. This is a brother drawing a line. And once that line is drawn, crossing it becomes far more complicated. The immediate aftermath was swift and impossible to ignore. Public reaction came in waves. Some expressed sympathy for Prince Harry, viewing the decision as exclusionary and harsh. Others supported Prince William, arguing that leadership sometimes requires difficult, even uncomfortable choices. But beyond public opinion, the real impact is unfolding quietly. Because decisions like this don't just affect one event, they shape long-term dynamics. Within royal circles, the message is clear. The monarchy is entering a new phase, one where control, consistency, and image are being carefully managed. And that has consequences. For Harry, this could mark another step away from the institution he was once deeply embedded in. For William, it reinforces his role as a decisive figure, someone willing to act in the interest of the crown, even when it comes at a personal cost. But what happens next remains uncertain. Will there be future opportunities for reconciliation? Or has this moment solidified a divide that may never fully heal? Because while the headlines focus on who was invited and who was not, the deeper story is about transformation. A transformation of roles, of relationships, and of the monarchy itself. And as the dust begins to settle, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This wasn't just a decision about Balmoral, it was a statement about the future. And in that future, not everyone may have a place.